This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com and GatheringMagic.com, your place to explore the game.
Hello everyone, this is my Lin Sivvi Defiant Hero EDH deck. Everyone, and welcome to my Lin Sivvi Defiant Hero EDH deck. As you can see, this is Lin Sivvi. She costs 1 white and is a 1/3 Rebel Legendary, and she has the ability to pay X and tap to search my library for a Rebel permanent card with converted mana cost X or less, and put it into play, then shuffle my library. And she can also pay 3 mana to put target Rebel card from my graveyard onto the bottom of my library. So basically what I use her for is her toolboxing effect, where I can search my deck whenever I want and get out whatever tool I need. Because there's a few rebels in here that can act as removal spells or win conditions or things like that. Alright, let's get on to the deck. I run 28 basic planes. For my non-basics, I have Temple of the False God, Terrain Generator. Both of those are used for ramp. Emeria the Sky Ruin is a recursion land, quite useful in a mono white deck. Evolving Wilds as a shuffle effect for Lin Sivvi, her second ability mostly. Secluded Steppe and Drifting Meadow for card draw. Reliquary Tower for utility. And for combat, we have Mazavith and Kor Haven. Both of these prevent people from attacking us and hurting us. Children of Korlis is the first of our rebels here. This is for one part of a combo in the deck that lets me make very large creatures, which I'll explain in a little bit. And it's also useful, almost like a fog effect. Ramosian Sergeant is a 1-cost 1/1 that searches for more rebels. Amrou Scout is a 2-cost 2/1 that also searches for more rebels. Same thing with Defiant Falcon, it's a 1/1 flyer. And then we have Knight of the Holy Nimbus, which is a good combat trick if your opponent is tapped out. Lets you block creatures for free. When you search it up, that is. And then Ramosian Sergeant is a 2-cost 1/2 that also searches. And then Whipcorder is sort of a political card, helping our friends or saving ourselves from big creatures by tapping them down. Defiant Vanguard is basically a removal spell in combat. If you search this up when someone attacks you, you can destroy their creature. So it's very good if they don't know it's in your deck. Lawbringer and Lightbringer are two basically removal spells, especially since I run Distorting Lens, which lets me turn any creature into any color. So then I can just exile them by sacrificing these guys, and with Lin Sivvi I can put them back into my library and search them back up. And then our win condition, main win condition, is Mirror Entity. So since it's a changeling, it counts as a rebel, so I can search it up with Lin Sivvi, and it can also make all my creatures huge, so it's really good. Now for our non-rebel creatures, we have Withered Wayfarer, because it's really good in mono white and helps us fix our lands. We have Oreskos Explorer, which ramps us up a little bit if we're behind. Aven Mindcensor is a really good utility creature, especially for decks that search a lot that we play against. So sad times for other toolbox decks. Mentor of the Meek, really good card draw engine, especially in this deck with such small creatures. Especially because we need the card draw for being in mono white, and since mono white doesn't have very much card draw, this is probably one of the best you can get. Heliod, God of the Sun, is a good, basically, enchantment in here. You're not going to have it active a lot unless you want it to be. But it does give your creatures vigilance and counts as a token generator, which works well with Mirror Entity. Solemn Simulacrum is a good staple. Glory. It costs 1 white and is a 3/3 with flying. It's a spirit, I believe. And when it's in your graveyard, you can pay 2 and a white to give all your creatures protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So pretty good against removal spells, and also allows your team to pack a punch if you need to. Sun Titan is really useful in this deck, where a lot of the permanent cards actually cost 3 or less, and is also a really large body, but not too big, where it becomes the immediate focus of the table, so I like it in this deck. And then lastly, we have Eternal Dragon and Serra Avatar, sorry. Eternal Dragon is basically another ramp spell, lets me get planes in my hand and keep playing them, and it also serves as a late game threat. And then Serra Avatar prevents me from being milled out, as well as acts as a secondary win condition, I guess. If my life total is high enough, I can start killing people with it. Now onto the instance, we have Enlightened Tutor, because it's really good, helps me search for any artifact or enchantment I need at instant speed. Swords of Plowshares is arguably the best removal spell in white of all time, so why not play it? Tithe lets me search for 1 planes at instant speed, or if any opponent has more lands than I control, then I can search for an additional planes, so it can be pretty good. Unexpectedly Absent is a really strong instant speed removal spell for any permanent, non-land permanent that is. Abolish is basically a free disenchant, really good in this deck. Lapse of Certainty is a white counterspell, which I really like actually. I love counterspells, so why not play it? Oblation is also really strong in Commander, lets me tuck my enemy commanders, and drawing 2 cards usually isn't that big of a deal when you're winning. Whites and Zenith is also a good pump for the team, where I can make a lot of creatures on the end of someone's turn, and I can also pump them up with Mirror Entity to win the game. Return to Dust is probably the best artifact and enchantment removal spell that you can get here, so I'd say it's pretty good. So yeah, I'll play it. Onto the sorceries, we have Gift of Estates, basically a tithe that costs 1 more, and can search for up to 1 more planes. Pretty good. Martial Coup lets me wipe the board, and if I pay enough, I can also... lets me get Soldier tokens, and if I pay enough, I can also wipe the board. So, pretty good. Harsh Mercy lets me choose a creature type, or each player chooses a creature type, and then destroys all creatures that aren't that creature type. So, if I choose Rebel, most of my creatures aren't going to die. And a lot of times, my opponents will have at least 1 or 2 creatures that aren't their creature type that they choose, so I'll be able to kill quite a few creatures with this. Retribution of the Meek is probably the best board wipe in here, just because almost all of my creatures, except for 3 or 4, have power 4 or greater, and that being said, that means that most of my creatures are going to live through this, while most of my opponent's creatures are going to die. Plus it's only 3 mana, so it's really good. Decree of Justice lets me build up a board state if I get behind, and I can also cycle it to get both creatures and card. Hallowed Burial is a global tuck, but it's really good in this deck specifically because when I tuck my creatures, I can actually search them back out with Lin Sivvi or with another Rebel card, so I can build up my board state much faster than my opponents can. Austere Command is really strong at clearing all sorts of things, so I'd say why not play it here. And then Terminus is the same thing as Hallowed Burial, but the Miracle isn't too far-fetched because I have a couple of cards that let me put cards on top of my library. So, pretty good. Alright, down to artifacts. We have Everflowing Chalice for ramp, Expedition Map for fixing onto specific lands and also getting ramp, if needed. Sensei's Divining Top. We pretty good EDH staple, and also helps us with Terminus and other things. Skull Clamp is one of the few ways to draw cards. Works really well with Mobilization and Heliod and things like that. I'd say pretty strong card. Soul Ring, basic ramp, really good. Distorting Lens, again, works with the Lawmaker and Lightmaker in this deck. works actually quite well, lets me remove any creature. That's pretty much its only use though. Mind Stone is ramp and occasional card draw. Scroll Rack is a good way to fix our hand if it's not looking very good, and also works pretty well with, it's a couple cards down, but it works well with Teferi's Puzzle Box. 1,000 Year Elixir works well with Rebels, being that Rebels need to use all of their abilities to tap, or all of their abilities have a tap in their cost. And since this lets them use it as though they had haste, I can use it right away. Plus it also lets me untap a creature so I can use it multiple times. Really useful card in this deck. Worn Power Stone is another ramp card. Phyrexian Processor works well with Children of Korlis, because if I pay, let's say, 39 life, and then sacrifice Children of Korlis to gain 39 life, then every turn I can make a 39/39 token, which is pretty ridiculous. Teferi's Puzzle Box, this lets me mess with all my opponent's hands while I keep drawing cards. This works pretty well in this deck, not only because I have things like Sensei's Divining Top and Scroll Rack where I can sort of fix my hand, but I can also get a bunch of planes in my hand from all the other instants and sorceries, as well as land tax later on, and then I can cycle those into more cards, so pretty good. Mind's Eye, another way to draw cards, pretty good. Worked really well when my opponent's drawing off of Teferi's Puzzle Box. Land tax, as I mentioned earlier, lets me get a lot of lands, and pretty good card in general. Blind Obedience, usually not a very problematic card for my opponents. They don't ignore it, or like they don't totally ignore it, but they're not gonna go all out and kill me because I have Blind Obedience in play. So a pretty good card. Also the Extort can be pretty useful sometimes. Aura of Silence is kind of a way to get rid of artifacts and enchantments, as well as make them harder for my opponents to cast, so against, you know, monocolored decks, or mono-colorless decks, it's pretty good. Bound in Silence is a Rebel Aura, so I can search this up with Lin Sivvi or any other Rebel, and put it on any creature, including Hexproof and Shroud creatures, because it comes into play attached to those creatures, which means that it doesn't actually target. It's pretty cool. I like that interaction. Mobilization, it's mostly in here for Skull Clamp, which lets me draw a lot of cards, but also works well when I pump all my creatures with Mirror Entity, because it gives all my soldier creatures vigilance, but all my creatures become both soldier creatures and rebel creatures and all the other creature types, so they all gain vigilance. I kind of like that interaction. Parallax Wave, it was in the original Rebel standard deck when Rebels first came out in Mercadian Masks, and it's a pretty good card in general. Lets me exile a bunch of creatures at once, keep the board clear. I can use it at any time. Really nice card, actually. And onto the last few cards, we have our Planeswalkers of Gideon Jura, acts as a pseudo removal spell, and also keeps my opponents from attacking me, or anyone else for that matter, and can work as his own little win condition. Elspeth, I'm working on getting all these proxies in by the end of the week, but Elspeth builds a board state for me and can also work as her own win condition, plus she has the added bonus of being a good board wipe. A Retribution of the Meek, so pretty good. Karn Liberated is our last card, and he can exile permanents as well as take cards from our opponent's hands, and if you ultimate, you're probably going to win the game. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and favorite.